We've all felt it, right? That magnetic pull, that really deep connection that we call love. But what if I told you it's not just about poetry or romance? Today, we're going to dive deep into the biology of us. We're talking about the ancient evolutionary drives and the powerful chemical reactions that are really running the show. So let's just kick things off with the big question for this whole explainer. Is love, well, is it just a beautiful, kind of elaborate trick that our genes are playing on us to get what they want, which, is simply to make more copies of themselves? It's a wild thought, and by the end of our journey today, you're going to see the science that points to the answer. We usually think about love in psychological terms, that warm, fuzzy feeling of attachment, of devotion. But biology, it has a much colder, more pragmatic view. From an evolutionary perspective, love is a tool. It's a mechanism perfectly designed to make sure our species survives and reproduces. And that's the lens we're going to be using today. Okay, so to really get the biology of love, we have to rewind the clock. I mean, way, way back. Before romance, before attraction, before there are even two sexes. The question is, why does sexual reproduction even exist at all? I mean, it's so complicated, there has to be a really powerful reason for it. So the easiest way to reproduce is just to clone yourself, right? Like bacteria do. It's super fast, it's efficient, you get a perfect copy every time, but, and it's a huge but, there's a massive risk. If a new disease pops up or the environment changes, it could wipe out your entire population because everyone is genetically identical. Sexual reproduction is evolution's killer app for this exact problem. By mixing genes from two different parents, you create totally unique offspring. That variety is the secret sauce for survival in a world that's always changing. So really, when you strip everything else away, the core biological purpose of sex is just to shuffle the genetic deck. That's it. It creates new combinations, which gives the next generation a better shot at adapting and surviving. All the other stuff we associate with it, the pleasure, the romance, that's just the beautiful packaging that evolution added on much, much later. Okay, so mixing genes is the goal. Got it. But that immediately creates a whole new problem. How do you get two different sets of genes to actually, meet up? This is where evolution starts getting really creative and starts building this whole complex game of attraction. In the very beginning, all the reproductive cells, the gametes, they were all basically the same. But evolution started pushing them down two totally different paths. One path was to get big, to become this large, nutrient-packed resource for the future baby. That became the egg. The other path, it was all about being small, fast, and super mobile. And that, of course, became the sperm. And with that one single split, the biological foundation for two distinct sexes was born. Now, this split had a huge, immediate consequence. Females now produce just a few very precious resource-heavy eggs, while males produce millions and millions of tiny sperm. This imbalance basically bakes competition right into the system from day one. It's like a marathon, right? Only the fastest, strongest sperm gets to the finish line, proving its genetic quality before it can even pass its genes on. So this brings us to the next big evolutionary puzzle. With one sex making this huge investment in the egg and the other competing with millions of sperm, the game gets way more complex. For the female, choosing the right partner suddenly becomes absolutely critical. How does she make sure she's getting the best possible genes? Well, evolution basically came up with two main playbooks for this. First, you've got the tournament. This is where males physically fight each other for the right to mate. The biggest, strongest one wins, proving he's genetically superior through sheer force. The second strategy is courtship. Instead of fighting, males put on a show. They flash bright colors, sing complex songs, or bring gifts, all to prove that they're healthy, resourceful, and a worthy choice. One strategy gives you bigger males, the other gives you more beautiful or clever ones. All right, now let's talk about us. Humans are just fascinating because we kind of blend these strategies, but then we add our own very weird twist. Long-term pair bonding, monogamy. So the question is, why did our species go down this pretty unusual evolutionary road? The first clue? It's literally written on our bodies. That size difference you see between human males and females, that is a direct evolutionary echo of our tournament past, where for thousands and thousands of generations, bigger males just had a better chance of passing on their genes. But then, something happened that was a total game changer for our ancestors. Our brains got huge. And this meant our babies were born incredibly helpless and needed years and years of intensive care. A single parent just couldn't do it alone. This created this intense evolutionary pressure for long-term, dual-parent care. And to solve this problem, human biology developed a solution that is just brilliantly sneaky. First, think about this. For most animals, it's super obvious when the female is fertile. There are physical signs, there are scents, there are specific behaviors. But for humans? Nope. Ovulation is hidden. It's a secret. Why? Well, this biological secret completely changed the male's strategy. He couldn't just show up when she was fertile, mate, and then leave. To be sure that the kids he was investing all this time and energy into were actually his, he had to stick around for the long haul. Concealed ovulation is literally a biological mechanism that helps glue the pair together. And all of this leads us to the core human strategy, conditional monogamy. It's a pair bonding system that evolved for one big reason, to make sure our helpless kids survive. You could call it our biological baseline. But, and this is a really big but, it is always in tension with those older, more competitive instincts that are still wired deep inside our brains. It's a really delicate and often pretty difficult balancing act. So we have the big picture evolutionary strategy. But what about the actual feeling? What is happening in our brains that makes us feel that intense bond we call love? Okay, let's zoom in and look at the chemical cocktail. So you can think of the brain experiencing intimacy like a 3-act play, and each act is driven by a different set of chemicals. Act 1 is all that thrilling pursuit and excitement, and that's fueled by dopamine. Act 2 is the calm, comfort, and pleasure phase, where endorphins take center stage. And the finale, the climax, and that feeling of attachment afterwards, is powered by a flood of oxytocin and vasopressin. Let's start with dopamine. This is the molecule of more. It's the neurochemical of the chase. It's that can't eat, can't sleep, totally obsessive energy you feel at the start of a new relationship. It's why you check your phone every 30 seconds for a text. See, dopamine isn't really about pleasure itself, it's about the anticipation of pleasure. It's what drives us to seek and pursue. Then, once that initial chase settles down a bit, endorphins take over. If dopamine is the thrilling first state, endorphins are that comfortable, easy silence of a long-term couple just chilling on the couch. They are our brain's natural painkillers, creating this feeling of calm, safety, and just blissful contentment. This is the chemistry that says we've arrived. And then there's oxytocin. You can think of this as the superglue of human connection. It's released during touch, hugging, and especially during orgasm. This hormone is all about creating trust and deep attachment. It literally lowers our defenses and makes us feel profoundly connected to another person. It's what turns a physical act into an emotional bond. And finally, we have its lesser-known cousin, vasopressin. This hormone is what encourages that long-term commitment and what scientists call mate-guarding behavior. It's the biology behind devotion, behind fidelity, but it's also got a bit of a dark side. It's the very same chemical that can spark those feelings of possessiveness and jealousy when we feel like that bond is being threatened. So, when you put this all together, it becomes clear. Love is really just this beautiful, elegant packaging for the raw biological imperative to create the next generation. Those intense feelings we have, the excitement, the comfort, that deep attachment, they're not random. They are part of an incredibly sophisticated system designed over millions of years for one main purpose: to create a bond strong enough to raise children. Which brings us right back to where we started. Now that you've seen the machinery behind the curtain, the genetic shuffling, the evolutionary strategies, the chemical cocktails, I'll leave you with one last thing to think about. Does understanding all this biology make love feel any less magical? Or does knowing the incredible depth and complexity of this ancient system actually make it even more so?